This is Nancy McClellan with Design Inventions, and I'm just doing a little playing today and thought that I would, pop on the video and show you what I'm doing. I am working with this Altenew stamp set, if you can see this or not, which is a splash of color. And I've taken some of the stamps already off of there, but it's just big splashes of color. To me, you can use it for about anything. That's what I like about it. It's got some really fun sentiments like live in color, live life in color. We're all just trying to find some color in this black and white world. So there's all kinds of fun little things. Colors speak louder than words. So there's a lot of things you could use this sentiment for. Or you could just put a basic happy birthday if that's what you had on there. So I'm just going to play with that today. This is an Altenew stamp. I'll stick this back underneath here so that we can see a little bit more what I'm doing. And I have taken a lot of the stamps off of there already, and I have kind of played with them a little bit, and I have conditioned these, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with the conditioning and in some of the things that Altenew does with these stamps, but a lot of times you can just palm them, and they're these large volume stamps that have a lot of space on them. They'll stamp much better if you just take like a white eraser and just scrub it over that area. Then you just kind of clean it off really well. I have a baby wipe, or I can just clean it off. Just get that stamping residue off of there. I've used this one before, so it's got a little bit of color on it, but it just helps the stamp a little bit better. I am using Altenew inks today. I'm using crisp dye inks from them. I have maple yellow, tide blue, ruby red, midnight violet, and I have some parrot. So those are the inks that I've decided to use today. I have those. I will use a black ink. I have just basically the jet black ink here. I have most of the Altenew colors, everything except the new ones that just came out at the 2018 Creativation. And I'm going to put a couple of these in here just because I want my cardstock to stay. The mini cubes are much easier for me to use. I have a hard time opening the oval pads. It has to do with my hands, so that's just me and my preference of trying to get them open, and I don't do well with them, so I tend to have the other ones. So let's go ahead and let's place this up here. I probably should have cut my cardstock down a little bit before I get started, because I'm going to layer it on a card, and I can do that. So let's kind of set this guy here. I want this one to be my yellow one. And just ink it up. Now I'm using a basic white cardstock today. I've been testing some cardstock out. I use it for my Copics or my alcohol inks, and I have found that I really like this cardstock a lot. It's a hammer mill digital, boy, I can't even speak, digital color copy. It's a cover base. It's 100-pound weight, and I like it. It has a little bit of a slickness. It's not as porous as some of the other ones out there, maybe like the Nina and things like that. And I have just tried it with different things as inking and coloring and in general. And I do like the fact that it's the weight, it's a 110-pound weight, so I'm able to use it also in some of my card bases, and it's just a nice weight. So I'm testing that today to see how it works. I'm going to use this stamp again. I like this shape. Let's move it down here. Let's see, I'm going to, I think, stamp the blue one. Kind of like that shape. So, and this is the Tide Blue. It's a really pretty ink. And again, if I had the larger ink pads, it might be a lot easier on some of these instead of having to put all the effort in and re-inking with the little pads. But for right now, the little pads are doing fine for me. I'll probably invest in the re-inkers. That way I can re-ink them. Can't wait. My local scrapbook store, Scrap Mania, here in Cedar Rapids. Can't wait for the rest of the new stuff to get in, so I can pick up the new ink that were here. I was very fortunate to go to Creativation, and I actually took a class with Altenew. So I already have the blues. That was one of the things I came home with, which was so gracious of them. That I got some new ink sets and I got some stamps. So that was a great class that I took with Nicole. So I need to pick up the last two, the green and the reds. Okay, so now that's done, I'm going to use this bigger one here. This is one I'm going to use with the red. Let's get my magnets out of the way. But I'm going to keep it down there. Let's see, how much of this do I want to get in there? And that overlaps that a little bit, so that'll be nice. Push this back down in there. I should be using my bar magnet probably. That would be a lot better. It has a lot more magnet stays. Now this is ruby red, so I'm going to put the ruby red on there. It's a nice red, but again, I'm anxious to get the new colorways from the latest release, because I think those reds are going to be a little bit more of an orange red, and I tend to be a little bit more of the orange red anyway. But ruby red is what we have right now, so ruby red is what we're going to use. So yeah, the bigger ink pads would probably be very helpful on things like this. I think it's just the span of the pad. I have had carpal tunnel surgery on both my hands. I think I tend to have a little bit of arthritis in my fingers, so trying to get them off those lids, just by the time you get them closed, I fight with the lids, so that's not happy crafting for me. Okay, so I'm going to do that one. I'm going to use my stamp chamois here and clean some of that ink off, dry it off with my microfiber, and pull it off. Okay, I think I'm going to do the Midnight Violet next. Let's see, I've got a couple of stamps here, different ones. So it's kind of got a nice splash to it. Let's put that one there. Oops. So some of you guys may see this blue tab on the edge of my MISTI there. What is that? That just kind of creates a little handle for me. It's easier when you're stamping. I can pick that up. It's just a piece of, it's actually fabric tape. You could do that with washi tape or masking tape or something, but it just helps me pick the lid up when I'm stamping and keeping it on there, and it's just a little helpful aid for me. So, okay, let's put a little bit of purple on there. Looks like I got a spot right there again. I can't tell if that just needs to be conditioned a little more. And again, if you want to clean your stamps off, you can use that eraser, and I can get like almost all that red off of the coloring and the dye off. That's another good way to do that. Okay, I think I still need to add a little bit more on this one to get the solidness that I want. I'm not getting the solid coverage that I want, so let's go ahead and put a little bit more on there, and let's just do that. And again, the paper that I'm using could have something to do with it. And again, this is just a good test of this paper. Is it got too much of a slick, non-porous surface that it doesn't want to absorb the inks as well. So I should get another piece of paper that's a different kind and actually test it and see what that does. So I have chosen the Live Life in Color. And I'm going to stick it right up here in this little corner. I think that's just a fun stamp. Let's go ahead and put that on there. I'm going to stamp it with the black pad. And I'm looking to see if it's actually straight. I'm going to straighten up just a little bit there. Hopefully I didn't keep my head too much in the way of the camera there. And let's stamp it one more time. Another thing I like about the small pads is when I'm doing something like this, I'm not over stamping and I'm not getting the ink all over the top of my MISTI. So I do like using smaller stamps, and I think that's just, I have a lot of those. I do have larger pads, but I don't know. I think sometimes I make a bigger mess with the larger pads. Could just be me. So there we have just some fun. Well, you know what? I didn't put the green one. Let's do one more. I was going to do a green, and I like this little splotch of green that hangs down there. So, you know, I'm going to stick it back, and let's put this green in here. I do like the parrot. The parrot green is a really pretty color. It's probably one of my faves on the green. Again, I'm not a pink person. If you've watched any of my videos, I have to push myself to use pink, and I have to push myself to use purples. I'm definitely more of an orange. I do like this brighter green, and probably hence my nails. You can see I'm more of an turquoisey aqua type of person. So those are my faves right now. So that's something that I'm stretching myself with and trying to get out of the box and use more pinks. I am currently working through the Altenew Educator Certification Program, and there's so many floral stamps, and this will be great for me because I will be forced to use some of those colors. I see one little spot right there that I'm not happy with. Let's see if we can get that stamped. If I can get a little bit of coverage right there. Could be in the stamp, and that's could be one of those things that, again, it's the splash and that's the design of the stamp. So I'm going to clean that stamp off. Yeah, it looks to me like that's the design of the stamp. So now we are done at this point. Okay, so I'm going to this. I'm going to take my MISTI, and I will put my MISTI away. Now what I do have is I have a card base that I have already covered with my fun paper here that I'm going to use. It came out of this Jane Davenport pad, which is just kind of some artsy papers, which are kind of fun. So I chose this. I just covered a card base with it because I thought that might be fun to put on there. I am going to need to cut down this card base, or this card front. So I'm going to just pull my cutter over here. I have this huge cutter, which I love this Caterpillar. I cut so many, I'm going to take a little bit more off the side, so many card bases and things for classes. This is the best cutter in the world for me. I don't ever have to put blades in anything, and it is the best thing in the world for me, and I can shave tiny little pieces off of that. So that's my cutter. I love the cutter. Okay, and that's good. And I'm going to use my trusty corner rounder here, and I'm just going to round the corners of this. And you're not going to see a whole lot of color when I lay this back down, but it just gives a little bit of definition of color. And I'm going to take my black ink pad, and just to put a little definition here, I'm going to, I don't like the way I've cut this little corner here. Let's cut it again. There, much better. I'm just going to go around the edge. It's a great use of your ink pads, and it adds definition to them. And I'm just rubbing it along the edge, and it's going to make it pop a lot. You can just run it around. You can just I've kind of got it at an angle, just going around, and it's not huge, but it just adds a little bit of different, a little bit of definition there. And this is the jet black. It's not the permanent, so it should dry much faster. It's the dye base. Okay, so what we are going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of, as I probably lean into the camera, sorry about that, I'm going to put some foam tape, and I'm going to pop this up a little bit. Looks like I need to possibly do a foam tape run here. I use this thicker foam tape. I cut it in half. It's kind of like, what do I get at different times? What do I pick up at the scrapbook store? I do use a lot of pop dots too, and I am not one that I don't scrimp on my foam tape. That's something I don't scrimp on. It's not worth it, and I think part of that is when you're making samples and things like that, like I do for the store, they get handled so much that I want to make sure. I do put the fun foam on my cards when it comes time to mail them, and I want a larger, background piece. So I'm peeling off the tape. I use a blade or a pick for a lot of things, trust me. That's just something that I have used. So take all this off of here. Okay, and again, I've got this card front on here. I'm going to lay it on here and glue it down. Okay, just a basic one, layer card, just something super simple to basically cheer somebody up that maybe needs a little bit of cheering, and it's just a very easy card. So I'm going to stick a couple of sequins on there, and these are from 28 Lilac Lane, and these are the best little fillers for shaker cards and sequins, and this one's got a variety of just iridescence and some hearts and things like that. So I have lots of different colors of those. I picked them up at my local scrapbook store, but I'm gonna just throw a couple of these on here. Let me see. Just kind of put them in there, and there's 5. So I think what we'll do is we'll leave the 5 on there. Sometimes I stick them on with the tiny little Zots from the Bling Zots, but I'm going to go ahead and put these on with just a little bit of glossy accents, because that way they'll stick. At least I think I'll stick them on with glossy accents, yeah. Stick them on. I think sometimes putting sequins on, I don't see how people do it the way they do it. I think it's a two-handed job almost, because I put them on there and then they don't want to release, and you really need to pull the end of this out. But I'm going to do the best I can. And I do use a lot of Zots, as I said. I'll show you what those are. Particularly when I teach class, I can preload the sequins onto Zots, and it's a lot easier for the class to have them that way. I think it needs to go down and he needs to go up. We may add a couple of more. But basically, this is what I'm talking about. These are Zots. They're Bling Zots. They're tiny little minuscule dots, and they totally are. I don't know if you can see this or not, but when you pull them out of here, they're just tiny little glue dots, and they work perfectly when you want to put sequins on something. So if I'm going to mail this, this is going to be perfectly fine for that. So there you have it. It is a Live Life in Color, very fast and easy 1-layer card with Altenew's Splash of Color and their inks. So thanks for stopping by. Try this project. Just play.